Hi guys, welcome to my series of interviews with amazing and inspiring women entrepreneurs. Today I have an honor and pleasure to have Natasha from the Feisty Kitchen. I'm so excited. I had so much coffee, I'm just bubbling up, so if I'm speaking too fast, you have to slow me down. Natasha, welcome and thank you so much for finding time. I know you have a fully packed schedule. Thank you for finding time to do this with me.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm so excited to chat.
How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Yeah, I'm getting ready to get my stuff together to pack and leave on a trip. So this is like kind of like in like a 2 day like chill mode before I go, sort of.
Fair enough. Before the action happens. Awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Where are you going?
So I'm gonna hit New York for a couple days and then leave there on Friday and head to Greece for 3 weeks.
Awesome.
Super excited.
So excited. Yeah, I think you mentioned that before. What are you going to do there?
I'm going to lay on the beach. I'm going to drink all the wine and I'm going to eat all the feta. And it's literally just like an R&R trip. So that's it. Yeah. Nothing too crazy. Yeah. Just totally like relaxing and maybe like getting inspired and regrouping and coming back like full of ideas.
Sounds perfect. I can't wait for all the reports from the
I'm going to be spamming Instagram with all the things from Greece.
All right. So before I'm going to try to formally introduce you, but I'm a
okay.
Throwing this up, so fair warning. Natasha is a food blogger. If you guys don't know her, if you don't follow the Feisty Kitchen on Instagram, and Natasha is a food blogger. She is a chef and she's a nutritional therapy practitioner. She's also a tennis player, and I call you if you don't know, I don't think you know, I'm gonna spill the beans. I call you the taco goddess. And
I love it.
yes, every time I think about it, I think about tacos, spicy, feisty, kind of in that mode, and amazing photography. Natasha is a photographer, and her work is phenomenal. Natasha, I've been following you for so many years. I love it. Every time I see it, I want to flick my screen. I'm drooling. So that's my introduction, which is formal. I want to hear about you a little bit. I want to hear about your background. Where are you from? Why are you doing what you're doing? How did you come here to this point in life, and what do you do?
Oh my gosh, so many things. Okay, well, thank you so much for that fantastic intro. Where do I even start? Okay, so born and raised in Northern California. Just moved to LA 8 months ago for kind of a fresh start. As far as like background and kind of how I got to where I am, I was not in the food or health or wellness kind of scene until I got sick. And that's kind of probably a similar story to many people. There has to be some sort of like maybe defining moment of why you choose to go down a different road. And for me, I'd gotten diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and I mean, for me, it was mostly like, oh, I'm tired all the time and I can't lose weight. I mean, like kind of like a typical, it wasn't like I was on my deathbed or like couldn't leave the house or anything like that. It was kind of subtle, but it was one of those things where it's like, I'm paying a trainer and I'm working out like 5 days a week and I'm playing tennis another 3 to 5 days a week. And like, I'm eating healthy at the time, what I thought was, healthy. But just nothing was ever improving. Like I was paying all this money for all these things and I couldn't lose like 5 pounds. So that kind of was my thing at the time. It was more like, oh, I can't lose weight. And then, I go to doctors and they're like, oh, everything's fine. Your labs are fine, blah, blah, blah. And then while I was playing tennis competitively, I started having heart problems, like arrhythmia attacks. And that was so scary because I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack. Like, what is going on? I was like, 25 or 26 or something. Like, this is like really, really scary. And of course I'd go to the ER and they're like, oh no, everything shows fine. I'm like, this is not normal. Come to find out it was thyroid related. They just weren't running the right labs. So that's kind of like a common thing of like, okay, like, let's just check your TSH. Oh, it looks totally fine. But I think years of not being diagnosed, like more health things started happening. And then I went to, I was having some really weird pains during playing tennis one time. And it was like somebody was stabbing me with a knife, like straight through the back. And of course I go on Dr. Google and I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm having like a pancreatitis attack, which was true. So I go to the ER and they admitted me and I stayed in the hospital for like 2 or 3 days. And again, like, they couldn't tell me why. They accused me of being an alcoholic, which was very interesting because, like, oh, that must be what the case is, because like it doesn't happen in normal people. Like, this isn't like a common thing to happen. So that was kind of like the turning point for me. That was super eye-opening because when I left the hospital, they didn't tell me anything different to do. Like, no dietary changes, no nothing. They were just like, yeah, just go back to normal. I'm like, okay, great. So I can go back to eating like pizza and whatever I want. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how does this just happen to somebody who's so young? And so that led me onto this path of like, I need to find out what's going on with me. And to kind of be my own advocate. I think that was like the point where I needed to really take control of my health and not just rely on doctors. Because, you know, like, to go back a little bit to the Hashimoto's thing with the thyroid, I went to the doctor once. I remember I had just turned 30 and I was like, no, I like literally can't lose weight for the life of me. Like, I've done everything. And they're like, well, how old are you? I was like, well, I just turned 30 last week. That's it. Your metabolism just slowed down. And I was like, yes. Is this real life? Like, am I being punked right now? What's happening? Like, this cannot be what's happening. So long story short, cut to, just did a lot of research on different diets, like how to use nutrition to kind of manage symptoms. I knew Hashimoto's was an autoimmune thing. I didn't really know what that meant. So I just kind of did my own deep dive and found some resources that were more of the holistic approach, which I wanted. And ironically, at the time, I was a pharmaceutical rep. So that was kind of I started like hating what I did because of the whole just like pill pushing doctor situation that I had to deal with every single day. And of course, like when I had the pancreatitis issue, I went to one of the doctors that I actually called on for work, and they're like, oh yeah, you just need to take Nexium to like control like the gastro issues that you were having, like kind of associated with that. And I was like, Nexium was one of the drugs that I was repping at the time. And I was like, no, like that's not the answer. Like, what's the root cause of all this stuff? And they wouldn't work with me, couldn't help me. And they don't have time for that. Like, you know, they have patients in 15-minute increments. So it just wasn't something that they were equipped to do. So through a series of things, I found paleo. I just literally, that was kind of when I first started my Instagram account, probably in 2014. And I literally typed in the like search section paleo, and I found probably 20 people with the name paleo in their handle, and I followed them all. And I was like, what's this paleo thing? Like, what is it? Okay, great. Like, I'm going to just do this thing. It was perfect for obviously like Hashimoto's with autoimmune, because eliminating gluten was probably the biggest thing that helped me in the very beginning, like control inflammation. And I don't have celiac, but I have, you know, like gluten sensitivity for sure. And so that was one of the things that started this kind of health thing on Instagram, and how Instagram really was the like medium for me to get to where I'm at now. So I just started an account of documenting what I was eating, and I was still traveling for my pharmaceutical job, and I was traveling all over the place, like hotels 3 to 4 nights a week on the road, having to make choices while in very, very remote areas in Northern California and Southern Oregon. And it was that kind of place where people started finding me, that, you know, sharing a little bit more. And I was sharing probably more of my health journey at the time, because that was more of my like, it was more of like the passion part with, while I was doing the job that I didn't really love anymore. So Instagram was my place when I was in the hotels or like traveling around, where I'd be like, oh, I'm eating this today, or I found this here, or like, this is, you know, I'd pack my ice chest and be gone for like 4 days, and like, here's what I'm doing. So that was the start of how I grew my account, and then decided I wanted to kind of have this backup thing. It still was like a hobby at the time, but it was way more interesting to me for like the nutrition and like the health things than here's a prescription for XYZ to like mask these symptoms that you're having. And then I decided that I would start trying to like up my photography game, because I know that like with food, people eat with their eyes first. And I was actually before, like in college, my first couple years, I was an art major. I just always loved art and like beautiful things and bright colors. And so that kind of helped me with the food part of Instagram being a visual platform, kind of trying to make my food look pretty and have it, you know, be something that was eye-catching. And then started out, which is obviously an iPhone. And then I started taking pictures and I got a camera and I started learning. So just self-taught, just like kind of one of those things. If I really want to be good at something, then I'm like obsessed with it. And it's kind of like the whole tennis thing with me too. Like, sucked so bad when I first picked up a racket, and then I was like, I kind of like this thing. I think I can be good at it. And then I just like obsessively like played like 7 days a week for 2 years straight, and then got good. So like same with photography, you just got to practice and practice, and like find YouTube videos and just learn stuff or take classes. And that's kind of where I got today. Basically, like I took some time to hone in the photography skills and like just make very simple foods, like not super crazy, like fancy ingredients. Sometimes that can be fun for me, but typically it's just stuff that I would normally eat, and I would post it on Instagram and then start the blog because I wanted a place for people to go. And so I'm not like the best blogger in the world. I'm self-admittedly, like Instagram's so much easier and it's kind of funner for me. But became a nutritionist after I got laid off my pharma job, which was such a blessing. I'd actually taken some time off because I got kind of sick, took a medical leave, and then got laid off, which was amazing. Like the best thing could have ever happened because it forced me to really like focus, like to go, okay, how can I actually make money from this blog, Instagram, influencer type situation? That's more than just Hobby Lobby. Because at the time it wasn't the full-time thing. So it's kind of where I am now. Did I miss anything? I don't know. It feels like so many years to cover.
What is it? You know, and honestly, I think because I follow you closely, and I don't think I missed anything from you because I didn't know if I missed someone. I try to look them up and see what they're up to. I feel like I didn't know so many things, and it's exciting for me to learn personally. I think this whole interview series is just for me, so I learn about my favorite people.
I love it. That's so cool.
Selfish intention there. I mean, I'm admitted to it. But my first question, I have a million of questions. My first question is, was it, I actually would have never guessed that you were not a professional photographer. I thought you had professional training. So take it as a compliment, please. Thank you. That's fantastic. So what dimensions you have in your business now? You're full-time. You don't owe anything to the big pharma, right?
Nope.
A person, all those amazing changes. And honestly, I understand some of them might be like health-wise. I went through thyroid. Exactly. I hear you because I had to question my doctor and, you know, in her face because they don't do the blood work we need to do. Right. So those things are near and dear to my heart. What dimensions you have in your business after so many transformations? Like, I think it's like a blurb of things, your life and your work, your hobbies and your favorite things kind of fall together. Yeah. So, I mean, primarily right now I'm recipe developing, and I do, you know, like sponsored posts with brands that I like to work. So I have like probably a handful of brands throughout the year that like I work pretty regularly with. So that's right now like primarily what I'm doing. I do also food photography for brands, like shooting content for them to use on their channels and their website. And then I'm getting a little bit into like shooting more like people and doing lifestyle photographs for non-food things. I have some friend like nutritionists, like, you know, blogger headshots kind of a thing. So I've done like that kind of thing over the past 2 years, and I would like to start getting a little bit more into that just because it's fun for me. It's still creative, and I just love taking pictures of people too now. So like that's kind of a fun thing. And then also just like other products. So one of my closest friends she just launched a new business, and it's so taking like product shots of her stuff that she's selling, and like did like photo shoots with her everywhere around town, like down here. And so that's just kind of like a little like side thing, but it's helping not get, I guess, sometimes I feel like the creative part of like continually cranking out recipes, there's some times where I don't have like the creative juices a little bit to like come up with something that's like, I feel like everything's already been done in the food. Like, especially like you look on Pinterest and you see a gazillion recipes, the same thing, like everybody has their own take on it. But I'm like, okay, sometimes I like get into a little lull with like creating recipes. And so
shooting people or other products is kind of like the other thing that I can do to be creative. And I would love to start doing more, I would say, like travel and lifestyle stuff. So going to Greece will be fun. Greece will be fun to.
Yeah, I can see that. You know, I think I took pictures. I think I was on her website, on Dr. Brighton website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love this image. It's so candid and so.
Yeah.
So what do you? I have. Where do you think you're gonna take your business? Where from developers having dream, big plan for you?
So this year I'm finally gonna, I like just kind of made this commitment to finally put out a recipe book.
Okay.
Hopefully by the end of the year. We'll see like how I can get that done. It's been something that's been on my plate, like on the to-do list for a lot of years, and just one thing, like life, you know, life happens one thing after another. I'm putting it off and this is the year I'm gonna do it. So it'll be an ebook, you know, like electronic, and I'll kind of, I haven't figured out what I want to do. And it's funny that you called me the taco. What did you call me? The taco queen? No.
Taco goddess.
Goddess? Okay. Well, hint, it's going to be something taco related. So, yeah. So look for that. Hopefully like late fall or towards the end of the year.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Every time I make tacos, I fail dramatically, and I think, like, you know, those.
Oh, come on.
Fire. No, it's tasty, but it's never gonna look good. Not in my plate. But then I have inspiration. You know, I'm always inspired by someone creating amazing dishes. So, what would you say? I know you went through a lot in the last few years, just listening to you in terms of business and development, and so much learning. I hear there's so much learning. What were the hardest and the best parts of your last year? What were the challenges that you faced and you came through and conquered?
Okay, this is a deep one. Specifically the last 12 months, but even before that, the last probably 2 to 3 years, it's been more in my personal life. And I think that has been kind of like the thing that I've just now started to talk about, because, you know, we see this curated thing on Instagram with most of these people. Like, you follow these people and it's very like, and I'm so guilty of it, because like with the aesthetically pleasing Instagram account that I want, with like perfectly, you know, taken food photos, it doesn't happen. I've started posting literally like iPhone photos that like do so much better than my other shots that I like take so much time to figure out how to shoot. And it's interesting to me, but I think people want to see more real life. And for me, the last 2 to 3 years, but more specifically the last year, has been so many challenges in my life personally that have affected my business, in the sense that my husband and I were going through a divorce. It, you know, took a long time to get to the place where we decided that we probably should just be friends and not be married anymore. And after almost 17 years of marriage and being with somebody for like almost 20 years total, like I was a kid, like we met in college. And so that was like, obviously, like, as you can imagine, like kind of a tough thing. And like, we're still really great friends, and like, it couldn't have been any better of a situation to go through something so hard like that. But that definitely affected so much of my life for the past 12 months. Last year in July was when we decided that we should probably just be friends, after like trying to work things out for a couple years, and just kind of both being on different places in our lives. And for me, I was, I think, impacted in a sense that it kind of froze me, and I felt paralyzed a little bit. Creatively, what did I want to do with my blog or my Instagram? Like, where did I want to go? I couldn't really make any decisions, because I didn't realize how much the stress of being in a situation that I kind of feel like I outgrew. But staying in there, because like, I'm not a quitter, I'm a fighter. Like, so many years of like, you dedicate to being in a relationship with somebody, and then like, I just wasn't really like ready to just be like, oh yeah, I'm done with that. Like, let's move on. Like, so tried so hard, we both did. And then that was kind of like one of those pivotal points of like, okay, well now what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I wasn't loving the city that I was in. I didn't really, like, I have really good friends there. But at the same time, I didn't really have like a group of, people I think that were doing like the same thing as me. Like no one could really relate to like, what in the heck I was living in a small town in Northern California, like a couple hours north of Sacramento. Like, and there wasn't really like the health and wellness scene there that I wanted. And there wasn't that really like group of close friends that were kind of doing anything like I was doing. There was like one or two, but I just needed a fresh start. So in October, I moved down to LA, and it was the best decision. Like I just love every bit of it. And I think that it was a transition for sure. And like, even for 6 months, I was like, gosh, why don't, like, I need to have my shit together. And like, why don't I have everything figured out? And it's like, oh, well, because everything in my life just completely changed. Like, I don't even have the same grocery store, and I don't have the same, like, I'm waking up and I'm still getting used to like this new bedroom, and I had to get a roommate, and like, kind of like humbling, you know, I just turned 40, and I was like, oh my God, I'm starting my life over from scratch. Like every single thing in my life, I moved away from family, from friends, from anything familiar. And that's what I wanted. Like I chose that, but it impacted every area of my life. And so this year has been more about coming to terms with like, it's okay that things change, and it doesn't have to be like a really negative thing. If you decide that I did a post like maybe a week ago on this, and I didn't really know what other word to use, but like, you're in the wrong story. Like you can wake up one day and just realize like, maybe this isn't what I want anymore. And that's okay. Like you can change your mind anytime you want. So I think for me, it's been, I think a little bit less about the like nutrition and, as far as like that piece for me was the beginning of how I'm getting to this whole wellness thing. Like in my mind, nutrition was the catalyst for change and to try to get healthy and like manage an autoimmune disease. But at the same time, when you have so much stress in your life, you can't get healthy. Right. You can eat the perfect diet and like do everything in your power food wise. And if you have this major chronic stress situation, like you're never going to get better. Actually, Dr. Wright and Jolene we were chatting about this one time when I kind of like shared my whole like situation with her a couple years ago when I was up there. And she's like, because she was my doctor for a while, and she was like, girl, no wonder you're not like getting better. Like this chronic stress is intense. It's insane. Like your body can't get well, you know, because like obviously like you and I both know like what cortisol does and like stress response and adrenal fatigue, like all of those things can't get better if you're in a situation that you're chronically stressed out. So I think for me, that's been like the number one thing of overcoming and trying to manage stress and getting myself into a situation where I've tried to eliminate as many stressors that I can identify. And like, you know, first things first, like sure, eliminate food stressors, know what your body can handle, eliminate external stressors, like environmental factors, you know, like, so cleaning up everything in your life. It's so complex, this whole wellness thing. And it's so individual that I just feel like sometimes you have to really like kind of step outside and take this macro approach to like what else is going on that you can control and that you can change. Mm-hmm. And so that's what over the past 12 months, I think that kind of those obstacles, huge life changes have been something that has been what I've been dealing with. And I think, you know, people like, I don't know if you noticed, but people who have maybe been long-term followers of the Feisty Kitchen on Instagram, like there's been like kind of a subtle change. I mean, I wasn't posting as much for a while. I'll take like a break, like a week off, just because like I needed that space for myself, and I wasn't trying to just crank something out every single day to like do a post. So I needed to really take care of myself and like post something that was meaningful. And sure, sometimes I'm like, oh shoot, I haven't posted on Instagram for a week. I need to post something just to post something. And like, I hate that mentality, but at the same time, since that's where most of my business comes from, it is a thing that I constantly think about. But yeah, I think just overcoming like those huge life things and finding my tribe down here and like just being surrounded by like really amazing people, waking up to sun every single day and like going on walks on the beach with palm trees. It's just been so healing for me. And I'm just like in a really, really good place right now. So I'm excited for like everything in the future. you know, I'm not like super, super stressed out. I mean, obviously there's stressors, like, but way, way, way less than before.
Thank you so much for sharing this, honestly. I feel like, you know, my heart like shrinks a little bit for you and then expands, then shrinks a little, then expands. But I feel like I almost wanted to say, like, I'm sorry you went through this, but I also understand that sometimes it's the part, right, of just a part of life.
Yeah.
Something. And I agree with you. Those curated images and those beautiful pictures, little squares and perfection in the picture, not not a piece of dust. They don't show what a person is going through, and I really appreciate you sharing it, because it's deep stuff and it's hard stuff. I can't imagine what you went through in just a year and a half. Actually, it's a year.
Yeah.
A lot, and a lot of environmental changes, and you actually seem way less stressed. I never see stress on social media, right? But you seem to have this spot, or maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're finding that spot of comfort and peace and kind of being centered, what I call, instead of trying to figure out. I'm sure you're still figuring things out.
Yeah, no, like I would totally agree with that. I think that I'm trying to be more authentic. I hate that. Whatever.
It's not a trend, right?
Hashtag authentic, hashtag living my best life. No, but it's true. Because making some huge changes was the only way that I was going to get through like the grieving process of, you know, like in one of the, you know, talking to a bunch of people just over the past 12 months about life and like leaving a situation like that you've been so familiar with and in your comfort zone for so long. It's like you're grieving a person that's still alive. Like he's, you know, like that whole thing is so like people don't really talk about it a lot. Like, you know, when you get divorced, everyone expects you to just pick up the pieces and like next week, like be back to your normal self. And like, that's not real life. Like, that's not how it happens. Even the best case situation that I feel like I'm so lucky to have, you know, such a good relationship with my ex, like it's still, there's so many emotions that come up and it's still like a really hard thing to go through. And there was a lot of like, you know, I felt like I kept it all together. So I went to Europe last year, a couple months after we decided like to not try to work on the marriage anymore. And that, you know, came back from that. And then 2 days later, I packed my car with whatever could fit and I drove to LA to move down here. And I was like, this is great. It's like a vacation. I'm totally fine. Well, I hadn't even processed my Europe trip. I came down here and it was like vacation mode. And like, so I hadn't even processed anything. So like, I think it didn't even hit me for like 2 to 3 months after I got here because everything was so new and like just my like the whole sensory thing was just like
overload,
like what's happening. But now it's so crazy because now I'm like, holy shit. Like I look back on even like 3 months ago and I feel like every month I swear that passes, I feel like I'm in a better place and like it's such a different person. And that for me is like something that I want to keep talking about and like keep sharing like the process that I went through because I feel like it's not about nutrition and it's not about food, but it is because like I couldn't give of myself for like a period of time. Like I really couldn't give to anybody else. Like I had to just focus on me and just getting through the thing. And that's something that like I wasn't really like creating that much. I wasn't, you know, like super creative with the food part or like the picture part. And now I feel like I am. So I feel like you're obviously like everyone knows like your personal life can, if you're super, super stressed, it can dictate everything else around you. And, you know, I'm lucky that now I work for myself and I don't have to deal with like, I think maybe if I had like a 9-to-5 job, I could just go in, clock out. And sometimes that sounds appealing to like just go in and like, especially if you're going through a hard time, like you're going to get paid no matter what. You can just show up and you can just do the work. But I'm self-admittedly like unemployable because I just don't want to ever work for anybody else again. I don't want to build anyone else's dreams. I'd rather like work hard for myself. And even though it's a struggle sometimes and constantly having to like find work and figure out what I want to do I want to create a program or do I want to actually be a nutritionist because I went to school for that? But that's kind of where I'm at now is like, I feel like I'm finally out of the the fog of getting to a place where I'm feeling better and more creative, and that I can open myself up to help other people. So maybe nutrition will come in at some point. It still is not like a huge thing that I want to do right this second, besides, like recipe stuff and using nutrition for that. But yeah, we'll see where that goes.
That's so incredible, because I feel like after all those experiences, what would be your best, if you were to share? I know I'm all puzzled with so many topics.
Okay.
I'm blowing up my mind. If you were to share a lesson from your last year, because you're not alone, right? I'm sure, so many women going through things we don't share, whether it's a divorce or healing journey, whatever trauma we go through, right?
Mm-hmm.
We go through grieving, or we go through health issues that affect everything in our life. And that's, like you said, it's not about food. It's never about food. Food just the means and the healing mechanism. What would you say to a woman in your shoes, like Natasha from a year ago, or Natasha in the hardest or darkest day? What would you say? What was your biggest lesson from that point?
Oh gosh, let me think about that. I mean, the thing that just comes to my mind right now is like, trust your gut. Like especially us women, we intuitively know when something isn't right. Like you just feel it. And I would just say, like, trust that. Trust that sense that you have. And just, I think for me, like, just give yourself permission that you know what's good for you and what's healthy for you. And it doesn't have to be this horrible, dramatic, like, situation. It doesn't have to be super, super, super bad for it to not be healthy for you. And just to, like, trust those instincts of knowing that maybe something's off and something needs to change, and kind of like allow yourself to put you first and to make those things happen, whatever it is. So, and I think, like, I did talk about this, like, on one of my last posts, that it doesn't have to be an abusive relationship. It doesn't have to be in the traditional sense. It doesn't have to be something super, super horrible. I mean, over the past 15 years, I have had, like 6 different types of jobs. If you're spending the most amount of time, like, at your job and in a relationship, those 2 things, and they're not right for you, it's only going to be like the chronic stress situation down the road. Like, it may not appear a year into it or 2 years into it, but maybe like 5 to 10 years into it, and you just don't feel like you're bringing your best self to the table because something is off in some part of your life. I just think that so many people just say, like, oh, I'm going to stick it out, or, oh, I'm going to power through. And that's not always the best answer. So I would say, like, if you feel like something's wrong, like, I don't like that word, wrong. Okay. If you feel like something, again, like, you've outgrown a situation, no matter what it is, you can change it.
Yeah.
Like, you're the only person that can really, like, change your scenario, and, like, you have the power to make those changes to be in a better place. So I would say, like, that's probably the biggest thing that I had to learn, because I took, like, years trying to stay in a situation that ultimately, like, wasn't going to be healthy anymore. And it wasn't healthy, and it wasn't horrible. That's the hard part. Like, it wasn't horrible. So, like, it takes a longer time to realize when it's not some obvious, like, oh, you're getting verbally abused, or, like, it's something like that that's like more obvious. It's not as easy to kind of navigate that situation, because I think a lot of times I was questioning, like, why am I not happy? Like, why do I think I deserve to just, like, go start over? Well, you do. Like, you really do.
So I'm not going to advise 2 women just to pack their bags and move to Southern California.
I mean, I'm not telling anyone to do something drastic like that, but I would just say that, like, trust your instincts and trust your gut on if something doesn't feel right anymore. You don't have to stick it out just because. And, like, we were in a situation where we didn't have kids, so, like, that obviously made it easier to not have to deal with that kind of a thing. But at the same time, I think some people stick in situations, whether it's a unhealthy work environment or an unhealthy living situation or relationship, even if it's a friendship. Gosh, I've, like, learned that over the past couple years too. Like, sometimes, like, people come into your life and you like, that's what you need at that time. But then sometimes you don't need that anymore. And you can be stressed out being like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. Like this person, like I'm not as close with this person, or somehow the friendship fizzled out, or like you just went your separate ways. And that's okay. Like, I feel like there doesn't have to be some, like, again, negative connotation to people moving on from each other.
Yeah, but I feel like it's partially the pressure from the society saying, you know, you have to be nice to everyone, and you have to not even nice to everyone. You have to try making things work, or be optimistic, or put on the mask, and your life doesn't suck. Why you're not, you know, why you're not happy?
Yeah.
That's what we're. And honestly, you probably know that I'm from Soviet Russia, and that's even more there imposed on me. So I had a conversation with my grandma the other week. And I told her we're moving to California. I'm actually moving back to LA in a few months. And she was like, oh, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna find work? What, you know, she had this idea of almost heartbreaking how life is stable now, but in a few months it's gonna be a crisis. So
yeah,
of sticking out and keeping up with something that does not work anymore. For me, Georgia, it doesn't really work anymore. Yeah. But that's a different story. What I'm trying to say is we are so pressured to be something or to be someone, even the pressure to be authentic on social media. It's a new kind of, right? But once you get deep down in your feelings like you did, you knew that that's not what you want, and that's okay to let go. It might be painful and hard, and a lot of growth, I'm sure, came out of it, right?
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate you sharing it, because I know if you there's Natasha, there's another Natasha, another Maria, another person who is going through the same thing, and maybe listening to it today would be, you know, a little bit of encouragement, a little baby step to move something or quit their job next day.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, I'm a recovering people pleaser. Like, for so many years of my life, like, I would do things, not like 100% of my decision making, but so much of it was revolved around, well, if I don't do this thing, I'm going to upset people. Or if I do this thing, I'm going to please people. And like, that is just a bullshit narrative that, like, is so prevalent in so many people's lives. Like, well, if I do this thing, what's everyone going to think of me? Or if I do this thing, like, what are my parents going to think? I'm going to disappoint my family. I'm going to do all this stuff. And it's like, no, you got to do things for yourself. At the same time, like, the people in your life who are supportive and who love you are going to support you no matter what. I mean, my family probably thought it was crazy when I told them I was moving to LA, because I never imagined myself down here, trust me. But at the same time, like, I just knew that this was going to be a good, healthy environment for me to start this next phase of my life. And I couldn't make a decision based on those familiar faces. Like, I knew that I had to for me to have that personal growth and to grow through things, I needed a different scenario. And yeah, it was a hard decision, but at the same time, like, you got to make the decisions for yourself and not be that, like, person that only does things or doesn't do things based on what you think everybody else in your life is going to think or what they think you should do, because that's not any way to live your life. Yeah,
and unfortunately, we're just getting, I think this topic is coming up more in social media. I'm sure you noticed. I have a feeling we're reading the same people, or at least we're reading the same book. I'm going to ask you about that too. But I feel like this topic is coming out more and more, and we're becoming more transparent, and we're learning the tools, actually, how to do that, instead of the pressure of someone telling you to do this life or do this way. So my question to you is, what gets you up in the morning now?
Now, gosh.
Coffee?
Absolutely coffee. I just wait. Okay. I don't really have, like, a great answer for this, but what gets me up in the morning is just, like, knowing that I have this second chance to live this life that I want to live and to create something different. I feel so incredibly lucky to be able to do this. And because I know that it's not that easy. It's just, it's not that easy to do. to completely like press the reset button.
Right.
But I feel so lucky every day that I wake up in a place that I love, and I have a great roommate, best friend situation, and that I'm able to do the things that I want to do. And if I don't, and going back to like personalities and stuff, on like books reading, Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies. So took that quiz like last year or something, or the beginning of this year. And it came up again, that I'm a rebel, like through and through, definitely rebel. Like, but just kind of knowing that I get to choose every single day what my day looks like. And like, that's how I operate. I don't even like, what is the, I gotta look it up. I have this picture saved on my phone, the quote of the rebel tendency. Okay. You can't make me and neither can I. That is like the rebel quote. And that is true. And like, I think a lot of times, it would be nice to maybe have a little bit more structure in my life. Like maybe I would do a little bit better, but at the same time, like what gets me up is just knowing that I can wake up on any given day. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. I don't have to wait for the weekend to get up and go, hey, I want to have a beach day today.
You can do that.
Like I can go and have a beach day.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not at the level financially that I want to be. I don't care. Like there's so many more important things to me now than like how big my bank account is, that I wake up and I'm so excited that I get to choose what I get to do. So
feel this, like the stream of joy and life coming out of you. That's amazing. That's really incredible. What do you read besides from Gretchen Rubin? I'm
not really reading a lot these days, actually. I need to get I would love some suggestions. I need a couple books for my flight. I'm going to be sitting on a plane for a lot of hours. Yeah, I'm not really a huge reader at the moment.
Okay, if you need Atlantic trip would be good with Jen Sincera. I feel like if you haven't read her.
Okay, no, haven't.
I'll send you a link because
cool.
It's called You're a Badass. So there are 2 books, You're a Badass and You're a Badass at Making Money. And I feel like
I dig
that book. I feel like you could. It's a really good book for women.
Very cool.
Let's shift gears a little bit. I was going to ask you about, because we talked a lot about nutrition, we talked a lot about your personal journey and how you share your love and food for people and food. Love for food and people. Specifically for tacos. My question to you is, I ask this for people in the health and wellness industry. What is optimal health for you? If I was to ask you, put you on the spot and ask you, what is it for you? How do you see it? Is it self-care routines, or is it nutrition only, or is it, you talked a little bit about the macro approach to, what is that for you? I don't want to answer for you. What is that for you?
Yeah, I feel like that again has kind of shifted through just like experiencing life in the past couple of years of realizing that it's not, again, it started with food, and it's not just food anymore for me. There's so many different things that I would say are important to me now. And for me, that does look like a great self-care routine. Self-care and self-love. Loving yourself enough to put yourself first. And what that looks like to you and to me and to someone else might look completely different. But for me, it's definitely taking care of myself nutritionally first. Obviously, and one of the things that I think over the past couple of years that I used to talk about was just food is one of the biggest things that you have control over in your life. Like you can control every single thing that you put in your mouth, and that's either going to nourish you or it's not. And so I don't eat perfect. I go out and there's unhealthy choices that I make. Sure. There's still all like gluten-free. I make the best choices I can. But I haven't, like over the past like probably 12 months, I've put less of a focus on the super strict macros / nutrition to being more of like intuitively eating. If I need, like right now I eat a lot of meals that are keto based and that are, like on a traditional macro level, like very ketogenic, but my whole like right now, I'm not tracking anything. I'm not checking ketones. I've done those things. It kind of can make me a little bit crazy and neurotic. So I choose to like eat a little bit more intuitively, right? I know what foods are going to nourish me and what aren't. So I choose probably, let's loosely throw around the 80-20 rule of those things that I know are super good for me. And then I live a little. like I have cocktails here and there. I drink wine. Like I'm not going to cut those things out. Like, sure, I probably would feel a lot better and maybe like have less, flare-ups of autoimmune stuff here and there. But at the same time, I want to still enjoy my life and live it how I want it. So if I want to have a drink for lunch someday when I'm like meeting a friend out, I'm going to have that drink. The other thing is like movement. And I took a couple years off from real movement, and that has been very humbling, to get back into it. So that's big. Just even if it's just walks, like just going outside and getting fresh air and like having that sun hit your face. Those are very important things for my overall like wellness and mental state. And then definitely like I'm so competitive that it kills me to not be able to play tennis as much as I wanted to down here. Just because I haven't really found that many people to play with. And I was at a tennis club for the last 14 years of my life, and there's not really as many affordable options down here in LA to join an actual tennis club. But that's something that is like super important to my wellness, and just kind of overall, like it is a stress reliever for me. It's a competitive thing for me. It's like something that I got really good at. So I just love that feeling of doing something physical that I just feel amazing doing. It's like that rush that I get. So I'm trying to find people. I'm going to throw out like an open call to LA, like play tennis with me, please. But just like doing the things that make you happy. And whether that's, staying in and not going out, whether that's like going out and being social, just really like, I feel like doing those things and being around the people that really elevate your happiness. And that's like the sense of wellness for me. Of course, I do all the traditional things. Like I think in a macro sense too, of really just like taking care of your body, whatever that means to you. So choosing to put the good food in your body and choosing to use products that aren't going to harm your, endocrine system or the whole like hormone disruptor things, because God knows we all have enough of that going on. So like choosing good products to use that you can afford, that are in your budget, that definitely help with those things. Taking the baths, like, I think every now and then, like it's too hot here now, but like in the winter, just really like a couple 2 to 3 nights a week, like just really just soaking in that tub and throwing in all the Epsom salts and throwing in all the essential oils and just really like allowing yourself that time. And I would say music is also, it's like a huge part of my life too. Like that really is something that I think like contributes to my overall wellness. Like I just love all sorts of music, and that's something that I don't really listen to podcast person. They're obsessed with podcasts when they're on walks or like driving. For me, music is the thing that gets me. So yeah, just all those little things. It's just so many little things that add up to like overall wellness. I don't think there's any like one like protocol type of situation that I do, but I have to have my morning coffee and then my slow like hour sitting in bed with coffee every morning. That's like my morning routine. Mm-hmm. And then the movement and eating well and just being around people that light me up.
Yeah, those little things that is so nourishing. You just like catching up your soul and your health and kind of for restoring the energy of balance, right? Being around, I feel like I think it was you. I think it was you. People who you surround yourself with. I think you mentioned it once on social media that too, because you only want to be around high vibe people and people who support your health too, right?
Oh yeah.
Try to find the number for Maria Sharapova for you, okay? I feel like you could use a team player.
Wait, say that again?
I was saying I'll try to find a number from Maria Sharapova for you.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Should be a great hitting partner for me.
You're not so bored in LA in that tennis scene. If you we're kind of starting to wrap up a little bit, although I don't want to let you go. I know you need to have some. I have a million questions still. So what advice would you give to my readers and listeners if they were to come to you with a question like, how do I don't know where to start. I'm ready to start taking care of my health. Where do I go? Do I start with my food? Do I start with a macros approach and eliminate stress? Where would you guide them first?
Gosh, I mean, I think food is like an obvious one, because it's so easy to control. Um, Even just small incremental changes. I talk about this with some of my friends that I like who are also in the nutrition scene, and food has been always the easiest thing for me to control. I can go 0 to 100 with like a protocol or a dietary change or trying a new eating like way of eating, and that's easy for me. It's not easy for a lot of people, but making small changes. Obviously, like finding a good resource or coach or nutritionist to work with, if that's a thing that you feel like is going to make a big impact on your life, then there's so much BS on the internet these days with like, oh my gosh, I was on Pinterest the other day, like scrolling through stuff, and there was this one diet and it said lose 24 pounds in 10 days eating, like it was the most absurd thing I've ever seen. Like eating eggs, and then I don't even know, like it was insane. Like 24 pounds in 10 days, like holy cow, like there's just so much misinformation. So if food, I mean, that's like a great place to start, obviously. And I would say just from like a very basic standpoint, just trying to eat whole real foods is like a great place to start. The other things you can add in, just like little daily things. Actually, my roommate is doing this like 15-day challenge on her Instagram right now. And just like little things, like 5 minutes that take 5 minutes each day, like little new routines or rituals that you can do. And like, for me, it's like lighting a candle, like making your room, like make your bed every single day, just like little tiny changes, drink enough water, like these little tiny things that seem so minute and maybe irrelevant, like really add up to a good place to start. So it doesn't have to be this all or nothing. I'm going to be keto tomorrow and I'm going to eat 15 net carbs or less. Like that just doesn't happen for a lot of people in real life, like with jobs and kids and families and just so much stuff going on. So just make small little changes that can be long lasting. And I feel like adding to that here and there is a great thing, and it won't overwhelm most people.
Well, that's perfect, because I feel like many people, they struggle with all or nothing. They want to have all or nothing, anything, especially competitive people who want to achieve a goal, and then they just fall off the cliff and it's hard to get back up. This is, I mean, perfect advice. I love it so much. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to suggest or recommend? And also, I wanted to ask you where my readers and listeners can find you.
Okay. Gosh, I don't know. I feel like there's so much to still talk about, but I think like the main things that we like, obviously, that I wanted to share about today was just about stress and kind of like identifying those areas in your life that you can control and you can do something about. And like those will make the biggest impact on your life. Food obviously is still near and dear to my heart and always will be. That's like kind of like the catalyst that got me to change and like become healthier and learn more about what true nutrition is. And I feel like that's obviously like always going to be there. But I also think just like take a look, take like an inventory of your life. And I think I said this the other day on one of my posts, like edit your life frequently and relentlessly, maybe, because it's the one life that we get. Like this is the one body we get. This is the one life we get. And just really like, you don't have to settle. You don't. So that's probably the last thing I would say. Where can you find me? You can find me at The Feisty Kitchen on Instagram and thefeistykitchen.com. And those are the two best places to find me. And I would love for anybody to send me messages or questions or any comments that you have on anything that we talked about today, because I love to hear from people. And it's one thing to get so many comments about, oh, that picture of food looks so great. But also like when I've started to open up and share more personal topics, just the amount of feedback that I get has just been amazing. I love that, like even just helping one person out, like see that they can change their life, and anything that that I've gone through that can help. I'm not telling anybody to like what to do or to like be drastic in your own life or be reckless, but also know that like you can change your situation if you want to. So
I love you so much, Natasha. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I really hope there's a cookbook coming up. I'm gonna put
there is.
Yes.
There is, and there's going to be lots of tacos in it, so don't you worry.
Dance. I can't dance, so that's my happiness. I love it.
I love it.
I'm gonna keep an eye on it and share it with the world. That's their tacos, Natasha and tacos. And
Yes.
So now I understand why the Feisty Kitchen, now that I got to know you in person a little bit more. Now I understand.
Love it.
Perfectly right. I love it so much. Thank you so much for your time and all the
Thank you.
into this. Thank you. I really appreciate you. I had so
Thank
much
you
fun.
so much. Bye.